Aha. I love technology. I won't repeat everything I said. Like, I was in the hospital, I was at the counter, I draw a number and looked when it's my turn. I looked at looking around for a monitor, and finally I discovered a very small screen with a very tiny little number on it. So I had really hard times to even like see it, not even like recognizing it. And then of course, like after me in the queue, there was like an elderly man who wasn't able at all to see when it's his turn to approach the counter. So I stayed there and like helped him to tell him when it's his turn. Later that day, I found myself running around in the hospital with a paper-based to-do list. It was literally a checklist where I had to go from room to room and like get my check marks for all like the tests I had to do there. And when I asked my doctor at the end, well, thank you for the nice visit here, but you know, I had here this paper-based checklist or to-do list. Wouldn't it be possible or even better to have it like in a digital form? And then she told me, yes, maybe, but you know, we have elderly people here and they are like somehow not so mature with digital tools. And she left me behind quite puzzled and trying to match what she said with what I experienced there, and also with the insights from our projects. Because yes, there are digital tools which are very accessible and inclusive. And yes, there are people, elderly people, who are not that old anymore and who are digitally mature and tech savvy. So like in all of my confusion and questions that arise, I'm very happy to discuss these kind of questions. Is it really that hard to create a great patient experience in digital health with these experts here in my panel? These experts will discuss with me, thank you for this, and share their insights from user research, their business perspective, and their experience with the German digital health ecosystem. Warm applause for these experts here. And of course, you want to know who they are. So I would like, maybe it's best if you introduce yourself. Simone.
Sure. So, hi guys. It's to be here to participate in this great panel round. So my history with digital health is the following. So the past 2 years, I led a user experience and research team at a digital health startup. It's called Temedica, and we have built patient companion apps to help patients with chronic diseases in their therapies. And Temedica also had a history of trying prevention apps, but that is another story. So I'm pretty excited to be here and share my experiences about health apps.
Thank you very much. Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Sarah, I'm head of UX design here at the Produktmacher. And our team has been working on various projects the last years. Some were connected to digital health. It's like the wide field from directly with patients or with the journeys that go from, for example, people that need a prosthesis or for kids that have illness, a chronic illness. So there was a very wide range. We didn't specialize in one field here. And yeah, I'm really excited to share some experience from these different touch points and what were the challenges on this project.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Yasmin Saric. My story in digital health is a bit long. I'll try to make it short. I was before I joined OncoHealth, where I'm now a CEO, I was working at BIX, the digital health lab of Boehringer Ingelheim, from the very first day where we've been building digital health products, and there I was responsible for ideation, scouting, and UX, which was quite an interesting experience. So user centricity, patient centricity is something that is really at my heart. And at some point I decided to move on, to leave the big corporate and get a bit more grip. that at least was my hope, and now I'm working with a small company as a CEO. We are called OncoHealth, with Q for quality in the name, and what we do is decision support for oncologists, and we have a patient app for lung cancer patients to help them better get through their journey.
Thanks. So I'm going to close this round. My name is Ramona. I work at this lab as a senior business development manager. My background is not in medical, but in business administrations. I joined this lab just a few months ago in March this year, and before I worked for Humor Therapeutics, a London-based health tech startup or scale up for remote patient monitoring and decentralized clinical trials. And I joined this lab with the goal to bring more efficiency and effectiveness to the German and maybe also the European healthcare systems. We have the goal to combine the different stakeholders in the field of laboratory diagnostics. So we build a platform for infrastructure and interoperability to combine and to integrate with the supply and the demand side, so with different labs for diagnostic testing, but also with the provider and the payer side, so meaning our clients are both the laboratories on the one hand, but also insurances and providers like telemedicine partners, symptom checkers, or remote patient monitoring providers in the healthcare system.
Thank you very much. So as you can see, we have here like a really great bunch of experts to help me with my questions. That's great. My name is Fabian Dill, and I'm one of the founders and managing directors of Die Produktmacher, or shortly DPM. So why are we doing this event here? At DPM, we are very driven by the idea of creating a positive impact with our projects. And when I look at the digital health area, I can see that there are like people who are sick, people who are maybe desperate and are actively looking for help. And on the other hand, there are people who work hard, who take risks, who help, and who set themselves the goal to improve other people's life. So I think that is a way, like a field where you could create positive impact rather than like helping consumers consume more or spend more time online or whatever. So that's why it's very important for us to be here. And that's why I also don't want to waste your and our time and dive right into our discussion. And to do so, I first want to set like or share 3 observations or trends, which may be like the groundwork for the discussion coming up. First, we currently see not only in Germany and not only in the health area, but here in particular, extreme skill shortage. So there are like more and more people and doctors are going to retire. I think, like we talked about it, it's about 20% of doctors will retire in the next 5 years. We saw also during the COVID crisis that the job itself is like becoming less and less attractive. And we, there's the question of like how to make this job very attractive again. This is one thing. The second is, on the other hand, we have like a skill shortage on the one hand, but a rising demand on the other hand. Like we have an like ever aging population, and also a population like that comes more and more aware of like also prevention and not only sickness but also health. And third, and this is what like really puzzles me, similar to my experience in the hospital, is when we look at the digital health area, it's not that we are like missing here some digital or technological maturity. For example, if you look at radiology, we have AI doing diagnoses which are better than human diagnosis alone. When you look at orthopedics, also here you can do a 3D scan, do the modeling somewhere in the world, and then do the 3D printing on the POS again. Right? This is really, really advanced, cutting-edge technology. And on the other hand, we hear like that our doctors and clinics have to use the fax machine in order to provide some data. Yeah, we all heard of this. And like when we have, as a patient, go somewhere, it feels like sometimes it feels like Middle Ages. And this is, a great discrepancy. And this is something I would like to dig deeper today. So, and I would like to start the round because like maybe not everyone here is from the digital health area, and the digital health area is a huge and complex ecosystem. Let's maybe do the round from your experiences. What are the things that are so special about the health sector? Why is it so different, or maybe not, from from other areas we feel like their digitalization works? Sabine, would you like to start? You want to?
Sure. Yeah, let me think what is so special about healthcare branch. I think one thing is that there's so many players in this ecosystem that we often, as product development teams, we often tend to forget that we don't only have a user and maybe some partner of this user, a doctor, but there's also other institutions that influence doctors and other institutions that influence those institutions. So I think it's not enough to think about what is good for a patient and the user, but you have to understand the different layers in this system and how they communicate with each other and what kind of process they apply to deliver a patient therapy or a patient experience. And I think in this big model, there can go a lot wrong with communication and expectations, mismatches. That's at least what I experienced. So it's not enough to think about a user and a product, but you have to understand the whole system around it. I don't know how it is with you guys. What would you say?
Yeah, totally agree. So I think in Germany we are in the, I would say, luxury position that we do have a good healthcare system compared to other nations somewhere out there. But on the other hand, and I think that's the same for other sectors or for other industries, that we have kind of an old system, but it works. So we sometimes, as you said, we still use like fax communication. If that really works, I don't know. I don't use fax. But we do use processes from the previous century because they work. So where does the motivation come from, or how should a clinician be motivated to change current processes? But if we now just start to digitize for the sake of digitization, we're going to still use the old processes. So I think we need a kind of boldness to rethink current processes and current procedures and tools that might be out there already, but to bring it in a different setting, to consider, as you said, the whole ecosystem, to combine and to integrate and to offer interoperability, to have a full patient journey from one end to the other.
I think, well taken, and I think you made a very important point. I think it is a traditional, let's call it industry, that is in place for decades, which really worked well. And I think the paradigm of goddesses in white is a well-known thing about doctors. And to become a doctor is surely not easy, and you have to gather a lot of knowledge. But society has changed a lot, and me as a patient, I think I have different expectations than people had maybe 50 years ago towards the system. So I want to be part of it. I can track a parcel that I ordered somewhere on this world in every detail to come to my home. But if it comes to the question, in our case as a cancer patient, or be it as a diabetic patient or whatever, where am I in this journey? What does it really mean that I'm suffering from diabetes or for cancer? And what does it mean in terms of my next steps?
And where are my previous health data I recorded, right?
Yes, how do I gather them? Are they relevant for what I'm doing here? So I think the role of the patient has changed a lot in the past years, I think for a good. And I think digitization can address at least a series of these topics.
That's true, and I think what we have to think, if you think the whole journey, that you're in the end not selling a product, you're selling a service. So if I imagine my doctor that I'm going to in my neighborhood, it's a very small store or whatever. Anyway, and I cannot imagine them changing the system. They are almost already now, it's like if there is something broken, or my dentist I went to, so they had a problem, I think, even with the phone. So they had somebody to call their guy that is fixing this. So if I imagine the same, even thought bigger with the whole system that is there, connected to the outside, to the patients and their system, it's all integrated. So you have to think the whole system as a whole service to take all that pressure away from them, because I cannot imagine as a doctor has the time to dig inside and to be the software specialist himself.
And I think that's a very good point. You talked about where does the motivation come from? We already heard the patients have changed. We keep our fingers crossed that some of the doctors also changed in their mindset. But as you said, the big regulations, they're also changing. I think with the what's coming up with the EPA or electronic health record, there's a lot of regulation which might also change something. Who are those? We didn't talk about insurances. Are they the ones who are the ones that might, or where there's a lack of motivation to change these systems? I think probably maybe you can answer it better. Everyone.
I think there are a lot of hurdles in this whole game, to be honest. I think you can start from a doctor's perspective, right? That doctors can prescribe today a DIGA in Germany, right? So you can prescribe an app that has proved that it brings a medical advantage for the patient. But if you ask doctors, so now you prescribe it, how does it go from here? Then most of the doctors just don't have the knowledge how to get an access, how the patient can get an access code. Doctors fear that they will be asked about technical issues that the app might have or what have you, right? So it starts on that end. It is, of course, the health insurances also come from a different business model, right? I mean, the business model was not very agile, which gave stability to the healthcare system, but driving this change, allocating the budgets for digital health is something that is moving slowly. Regulation, I think, is definitely one big topic when it comes to data. Sometimes you might get the impression that more the data should be protected than the patient. So I think there is lots of drivers in this game, which we are on a move, but maybe not fast enough.
Yeah, maybe if I may jump in.
Sure.
Maybe not with the right mindset, because if we talked about doing something digital for the sake of digitization, but do you really play to win in that sector, or do we play not to lose? And I think we can't blame just one individual stakeholder. I think it's a bit of, or a task of collaboration, where we have to act bold and think bold in order to integrate with all the different stakeholders. So, and for the health insurances, for example, we try to make the product market fit and the benefit for the one who's paying for the digital solution as clear as possible, and we try to calculate a return on invest. So if you as a health insurance, for example, offer a digital service today to your insured, you will save X amount of money or X% of money in 5 or 10 years because of early detection. We can save a lot of money. Yeah, it's an invest now, but it will save you money, and maybe that's the motivation and the benefit. We have to make more transparent and more clear, and not talking about the solution and the tick boxes, but about the benefits, to make it more clear and more attractive to start using digital solutions.
I think something happened during Corona already, like that you could, have a call with your doctor, tell him, okay, I need an extension for my sick certificate because I'm still not healthy, so there's no reason to go to the doctor, and everybody got so used to it, and now even more, and it's being cut back, but it's actually quite sad, because to get a result only and just to get said, okay, everything is fine, I don't have to wait like an hour or two in a waiting room and catch something else. So that's something that people are just used to it in the normal business world, to handle things like that. So I think, it will take some time still because of all these regulations, and you're not even allowed to send an email with your private data, and still everybody does it. I mean, I don't care, I send it to my doctor because I need an appointment. So I think it will come also by making it more and more standardized in the normal world, so it will have to catch up, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it works with this data topics, so you can ask patient data, you can ask patients to document things in apps, so or at least Temedica did it, and we try to work with that data to get insights about patient journeys and so on. But it's very laborious, I would say, for the whole product development team, because it comes with regulatory work, documentation. Maybe you know it, but just for the audience as well, if you want to change a button after release, that means that you have to document this change. And it has to be a full document, not only a few sentences about a button change. And those are this is the mismatch, I would say, between agile product development and being fast on the market, and on the other hand, trying to fit those regulations that are brought by the health system. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, because I don't know, like if anyone is aware of that. Like I think this is also special to like the health sector, that the way you can build your product and design your product is like not totally different than it's totally different than in the most industries, right? If you think of the building sector or construction site sector, which is still also always mentioned as some very special thing, at least there are no like so many like external regulations coming up. So I think what you just said, this is something that is definitely special about it. What I would like to dig a little deeper into is also this question of data and data privacy, because on the one hand, like we all know that the GDPR regulation is valid for all of us. It's not special to some regulations. Nevertheless, I think there are like something like on top of this coming. And on the other hand, also when we again look at the patient perspective, like health data is maybe the most sensible data. Someone like, at least when I can think of, is something that you definitely don't want to share and no one else to know except the person who should know it. Question is, and we already talked about this, like to what extent do we think that the problems that we have with our usage and leveraging of health-related data in the digital health era is really related to the regulation, is really related to the perception of the users, and how much is it related to maybe UX? So just to make it more clear, I think like most of us have no problems to use Apple Health with their Apple Watch. But when your doctor asks you like if they can digitize, you're like a little bit scared and say, okay, well, the EPA, I don't know if I will use it, right? So, and what's your perspective on
so
this?
I definitely think it's a UX challenge, because I interviewed a lot of patients, and it's like a 50-50 chance, in my opinion or in my feeling, that someone would say, I'm afraid to give away my data to some pharma company or someone who is going to spy on me and maybe create more expensive medications for me just to make use of my situation. But the other 50%, I would say, are like, I don't care, I want a working product that supports me. And I think the challenge from a UX side there is to be really transparent, and it sounds more easy than I just say it here. It's difficult to be transparent and to create a privacy policy that is understood by patients, because we still have those endless pages of privacy policies, and then you still don't get, okay, what are they actually doing with my data? And yeah, curious what you would say.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not a UX expert, but I can talk from a patient perspective, because some weeks ago I ordered a test kit on behalf of my mother, and just to figure out how does the process work and how is the user experience, and I was quite shocked, but I was really keen to get this test kit sent to my mom's address. So I went through the entire process, but I had the experience that this order entry landing page where the insurance sent us through, it was like a little outdated, and the design from, I don't know, maybe 2001 felt like an Excel sheet where I can type in my data. And for me, it was kind of shocking. And if I wouldn't be part of this digital health company and sector, maybe, say, if I would have been just a patient, maybe I stopped the process after 3 minutes because the experience was so outdated and not user-friendly, just from a, not from the content, but from the design perspective. And we need experts like you to make it nice and friendly, and also to, I had experience that this landing page was so buggy and it felt not really like trustful. So I think that's a trial and error and an A/B testing. Where do we lose the patient? Because that can be like the game changer, whether the landing page or the app is designed in a user-friendly way, like Apple does. I mean, they have good examples how to design a user patient and a patient journey. So I think design can be a game changer.
It is, and it's always, as you explain it, it's like everything is designed, even though it's not designed. So you will have, you will send out something. That's one thing that, of course, you have to design it to make the people trust you. And also what Apple does, it's not only that it's pretty, it gives you value.
Yeah.
As the user, you have first, you start with a value, that you get something out of it, and afterwards, better ask afterwards, okay, I would like to get your data, do something about it, but first you have to understand or make the user understand what's his benefit, and only then afterwards. It's the same what you do with push notifications. So if you have an app and you ask from the beginning, can I send you push? And the first thing is, no, thanks. If you do it on the right spot and you can communicate, I would like to, I don't know, remind you before your next visit. I understand as the user, okay, that's my benefit. Yes, you can. So I think that the journey, like the design, is not only the visual design, but also the process design, and when to go to the user with what and how to address him. I think that's the crucial part here.
I would fully agree, and I think there's a huge potential, as you said. So one is the design, the other piece is what is it the use for me as a patient, right? And the funny thing is, I have never seen a hospital information system who won a design prize, right? I mean, probably the most uncomfortable systems are in use on a hospital side that where the doctors have to enter the data day by day. It's a pretty hard task. On the other side, I think, and this gives really an opportunity to change the data landscape, to change the experience landscape if you address it from the patient side. Because in the very end, if you sit on a Sunday afternoon on a sofa and think who will win, the best system with the best data protection or the most usable one, most probably the latter one will make it. So I think there is a huge potential, and as long as you don't give up the data aspects and compliance aspects, I think this is really a road to go.
Yeah, sometimes it's also difficult to find this value for the patients, because in the product development journey you are at the stage where you could gather the data, but then something has to happen to process the data to provide value to the patient. And this step, in my experience, is kind of difficult to process the data and be that mature with your product that you can give back something to the patient at this intermediate stage, where you can't really give something back is difficult, because then people say, yeah, why should I enter my data when I don't get something for it?
Or a lot of times it's the hard last piece of the project.
Yeah.
Because all the people in the room, they have it in their mind, what is the benefit, but it's so obvious to them that they forget to put this on the top of the communication, or also of the whole vision, that it's all about this one thing, what all these little data pieces, they come all together for one goal, and they just forget naming it. So,
yeah.
So just one last thing to add. I think that the value of the data is immense and not frequently not seen. Just to give one example, if you look at oncology, right? we're in the lucky situation that we have so many drugs coming from a pharma industry, which is very innovative, pushing it. But the populations that receive these drugs get smaller and smaller. So you have phase 2, phase 3 studies with 200 patients or something in 25 countries, right? So you can imagine how hard it is to conduct a study, to find the patient, to administer the drug, and to prove that it works. So there is really a big sparseness of data. And if you, as long as you collect it with fax and I don't know what, on an email, which is done today, right? I mean, that's the reality. This is how you do post-marketing surveillance later on, right? So you collect it very painfully, aggregate it, and try then to interpret it and show that this drug makes sense. And I think it's in our very interest that we know this drug works and this doesn't work. I should switch the therapy to that one because the data have clearly shown that it works much better. And that's a thing which is maybe not to see on the first sight from a patient side, but I think once you understand it, everybody will subscribe to it, or most people at least.
And I think, like, as you said, like this is maybe something to, like, as a takeaway, that when it comes to data usage, that like we always have like our like main reason why we collect the data in mind, but maybe let's always think from a patient perspective, like what's in for the patient, why should they share the data, because like obvious there are some reasons to collect it, and if you could start like with this is what you get out of it, I think this would make things very like way easier.
Yeah, I also think there is a difference between this long-term values that you just mentioned, but I felt this isn't always enough for patients, so they can't be that. Yeah,
You're right.
they can't be engaged with a product that returns value in a year or something. So the challenge is to find this short-term value as well. And yeah, we experimented a little bit with gamification stuff, but in my opinion, it's still a challenge that we did not really solve at Thematica, at least until the point that I left the company. But I would ask you for your methods and experiences, how to create this short-term value for patients.
So, I mean, we have this lung cancer patient app, which is called Onco, and we had a lot of discussions. So how much information should we put in, right? You want to have an informed patient, increase health literacy, and we have been very defensive. And in basically all discussions, and maybe that's just a specific situation with cancer, but in all discussions with patients that we had very clear feedback, which was the more the better. Of course, I mean, it's a lethal situation, right? So it's about your life, and this is something, and in that case, because the hardship is so big and so on, people are really asking for information. I think it's different with other indications. You have to be careful. You cannot generalize that, but at least in that kind of situation where people have a very low life expectancy, anything that gives them credible information and helpful information is appreciated. And they didn't ask about UX. They just want to be sure that they are on the best journey and that they know where they are and where it's going. Yeah.
I would slightly disagree, because the more the better. When it comes to information, I'm not sure, because we know that people, and patients including, are kind of lazy, and lazy when it comes about information. Maybe the situation with cancer is a little bit different, because it's a serious disease, but when it comes to like wellness and lifestyle apps, so on and so forth, I think the main factor for adoption is is it personalized and is it customized to me as the end user? Because if I just receive general information, I can still use Google and Google for my, I don't know, diagnostics or for the risk I have with a special disease. So I think we have to target and to personalize the journey as much as we can in order to create a good adherence and not to lose the engagement of the end user.
Fully agree and subscribe, right?
All right.
I fully agree.
Yeah, we found that we had different personas for our apps, and they oriented a lot on this disease acceptance model. I don't know if you people know it, but if you have a disease, then you go through different stages from I don't want to accept it to I want to have every information I can about it, and then and so on, and you will end up maybe at some stage in resignation or something. And we found across those 3 different products we built for people with chronic disease that it makes a difference in what stage you are as a patient, because in the beginning you might not want to hear a lot about your disease, and you might want to just go on with your life, but then there's a stage where you desperately seek for any piece of information you could get. And yeah, that was at least our approach, and very important that there's some kind of personalization directed to that.
We had that as well, and for us it was in these different phases, that in especially the first, like this denial phase, that actually you're not talking anymore a lot of times to the person with the illness, but you're talking to the relatives, to someone else. So you have then suddenly a shift of your user group in this first field. And yes, we also had that with this different, also like the depth of information that is needed, like this huge need for information, of trustable information, and that it's a long period, and like how can you manage to get in touch and to stay on their side as their partner without losing them, without yet selling them because they're not ready yet. So yes, and also we had with this data thing that sometimes I think it's just good to keep it optional. We had one like a checkout to schedule an appointment, something very simple, but it was a huge discussion about whether to include, for example, the insurance number or not, because this is very, very private. You have to really trust to leave this number in this spot, and you have to really explain it good, what you need that for, what's the benefit.
So basically, like organizing the information that we have or that are relevant along the patient journey, or like, how did you call the disease acceptance
model? Disease acceptance model. I forgot the psychologist where it came from, but it's a known model.
Yeah, but I think that's pretty interesting, and also about the relevancy of information and why, like, or because I think like sometimes also information and data is also proxy for something. So if they like, especially in this phase where they like gather all information that's possible, they're actually looking for answers and looking for security and for like, this is relevant, this does it mean to me? And like, for example, we had one project where like providing information at an early stage about the disease would like afterwards really show better results. And the interesting thing, and now I move in a little different direction now, the interesting thing that we talked with that customer was that everyone knew it. It's in the case where you get a prosthesis, right? Then like as the earlier you know about it, what it means and what are the chances afterwards and like how it would look like and everything, the higher is then later on the success of it. And even though the customer knew everything about it, they still like afterwards when it came to, okay, these are potential projects and which to pursue, this one was voted like or deprioritized, I think, in favor of something technological very interesting. And this is something what like I'm always like jumping on is like, why does it like quite often happen that like the simple things, the low-hanging fruits, the where you can like with little information have great results, are seen as less valuable rather than something very complicated. Hey, let's do this with AI and like have 3D printing and all this. It's like combines basically both questions, like we talked about this, like the ecosystem in health, and on the other hand, the like best practices in UX. Do you have like any like examples or like, where it went like better and maybe differently, or like, could you agree on this and share some examples?
I've been working on a project in diabetes in Mexico. Boehringer has a coaching program which is called MediCoach. So really psychologists who have been hired to speak to the patient and help them get disease awareness, so exactly the journey that you mentioned. Understanding what is your disease, understanding the environment, helping them then to change nourishment, which is a family thing in Mexico, because on a Sunday you would go out and have party outside and lots of sweet food. I think most diabetics are in Mexico, if I remember correctly. So I mean, all these things which are attached to behavioral change, and where you have to be persistent in a way, right? So you have to understand the patient journey. You have to come back over and over again and slowly nudge the patient and say, yeah, well, maybe you should change that one. Maybe you should do a bit of exercise. Maybe you should, I don't know, take your drugs regularly, and all these kind of things. So there is no easy reimbursement model. I think that is so you have to set up a very complicated model in the very end, right? So what is the benefit for a pharmaceutical company to invest in patient education, right? So one aspect is maybe drug adherence that will go up. But for all the other things, there is not really a reimbursement model. So it's an upfront investment that you have to take that you cannot get reimbursed in the health system. And what you said, I want just to underline that there is so many studies that show increasing health literacy has such tremendous effect on the outcome. So if you invest €1 on the one side, I have forgotten the number, but you can read in a lot of publications in health literacy on the one side, you get it pays off really with an enormous multiplier that is quite impressive. So there is a huge opportunity there. I would fully agree.
And I also think like these companion apps are going in the same direction, because like the DGAs, you probably get at least some money for it, like depends. But like for these companion apps, usually you don't even like the patient at least didn't pay for it. So like, what's your perspective? Like you worked on these companions apps, well, like what are the chances, like also from a business perspective, to make them work?
Yeah, so they work kind of, but what I've seen not work so perfectly is that they are stuffed a lot with different features that are interesting for different stakeholders. So if they are financiated by some pharma company or some company that can invest money into those kind of products, then you have to offer some kind of reimbursement there. But often this turns into feature creep. That's what I call it. And then you make everything a little but not perfect. And the thing you mentioned before, that why isn't there small steps and small applications that are really turning out to be great for patients and to make fun, like Apple Health, just counting steps. Basically. But for me, or in my experience, it was difficult to start with one feature, making it perfect, because stakeholders expect that you have more to offer to them, and this influences directly the user experience.
Yeah, I would agree, and what I experienced in my previous job at Huma is that whenever we talk to clinicians for remote patient monitoring, I mean, it's still the very early stage in Germany, but they ask for a picture-perfect solution integrated with all their information system and all the other tools they use. And I would say, yes, that's a super fair point, but a lot of solutions, you talked about the fragmented landscape and the fragmented solutions we have out there. But just the fact that the clinicians or the doctors ask for a fully integrated solution today, and I have the feeling that they somehow wait for the picture-perfect solution that's integrated to all their systems, but we can't offer it now. So they just say, okay, then I'm not going to use it. So I think we have to, it's an iterative process where we start with maybe one single part or small part of the patient journey where we can offer an end-to-end solution. Although it's not the full journey, maybe it's just the diagnostic part or the detection part, but that one is in a good status and end-to-end connected with all the different stakeholders. And then we can start with the second part and the third part. So I think it's a step-by-step approach with the low-hanging fruits we have, because I think there are processes in the healthcare system where we can like zoom out a little and restructure and rethink and bring a digital transformation, and then do it with the next part and the next part, or start with one disease, like a relevant and serious disease, and then have a blueprint for this disease and copy and paste it for the next one. So, but yeah, I think this expectation of a picture perfect end-to-end solution for all parts of the patient journey, I think that's maybe a little too sophisticated, but nevertheless, I think we should start somewhere now.
I think so as well, and especially when you're already having your comfort zone with your one piece that you started on, I think it's so hard to open up then again, because you've already had here this field that you had to get out, talk to all the connectors that you have, and you have done that piece already, and it's so much easier to dig deeper here instead of expanding, because then you start with zero again completely. And it's also insecurity, because there you proved already, okay, here it works. And you have to, you know, be brave to expand then.
And I think, at least what we see in our projects, that like today I just had a call about exactly this approach, where we said, okay, we start digitizing one of the processes, but it's only for one like disease or prescription. And in order to do so, we usually like deeply involve like all the stakeholders and future users and all this. And I think this, though, like for that particular company, of course it works, but that this also doesn't scale for the whole like ecosystem we're talking about, because like there are so many like individual physicians or doctors, you cannot like collaborate with everyone on a solution, right? So when like we see like it might be a little dark talking about all this, so I just wanted to like spend the last 10 minutes of our discussions more into the direction, do you have like any best practices or good examples that you would like to share, where say, okay, it's not everything is bad and very difficult and we need like to like convince like a bunch of stakeholders at the same time with the perfect solution, where like, do you know any examples where it worked out, like maybe a step-by-step approach, maybe something like quick wins or small steps towards or in the right direction?
Who wants to start?
I'm sitting left side, right side. I'm going to start. So what I can only recommend and what worked quite good for our team is to work with blueprints, like to really not only view the patient journey, but also the levels below, let's put it like that. So all the other stakeholders involved in this journey, because they can have an impact on the patient journey. And with that, we tried to go into design sprints to work on this blueprint and to identify very concrete niche spots where we could start with an MVP of our apps. And that's, I think, a methodology I would recommend to all the people who try to come up with products in health care.
I think I have two, but I will keep it short. I think one is also the journey to go out and to check if what you expect is meeting reality. So we had one project was about direct combination, like the conversation between doctor and patient. And when going to the doctor's place, realizing that actually the person that is the most stressed in this whole place is the people at the front desk, because they have to pre-select all the communication. They have to see what they can do themselves, what is something for the doctor, what is coming in. So it changed actually the stakeholders. So there was a hidden stakeholder below that was not in the whole system of the product thought of before. And the other one, I think also especially in this medical area, is to really check your target group or your user group and to check your bias. Because when we started also in the beginning this thing with this elderly target group, so we had in mind like this old granny, you know, sitting there with her cat, being a little bit shaky and completely not being able to handle her smartphone. And then realizing, okay, this old granny like my granny was, so they grew out kind of. So the people that are now 70, they're different. They are already using their smartphone. So I have an aunt, she's that age, and she's using it like completely normal. She's having there her MacBook and booking her Flixbus to go to Provence to vacation. And I'm like, okay, I have to rethink and really check what my user group is. And especially, I think, in the health area, you tend to either make them too much a patient or too little, because of course, some have disabilities because of their illness, and they struggle with that. On the other hand, they do have this thing, they seek for information, and they need to trust. So that's something special, and some other things are just all over the same. So I think that's two of my takeaways.
I get subscribed to everything you said. Just in my words, I would say, the first question that I always would ask, who's the user, right? So who's the user, who's the customer, and who's the other stakeholders in the game? Trying to keep this separate brings you always back to, okay, what does the user really want? And I, as a patient, I own my user journey, right? Not the doctor owns it. Doctor has influence, doctor can recommend, but in the end, it's my patient journey and it's my experience. And understanding that is a critical thing, which everything should start from there. The rest, you have to have an understanding, of course, of the commercial aspects and know who pays for it, who prescribes it, who has which role in that game. But in the end, it's all about the patients. It's always starting from there, and also what is the need of the patient, understanding that, right? Really, there is always a gap, right? There is always something that the patient needs and would like to have. If he or she has everything she needs, then I'm done, right? I don't have to develop any kind of digital health solution for that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So I think the business case is super important. So whenever we start building a new digital solution or a use case, do we have a payer? Do we have a reimbursement scheme? And the second thing that we should keep in mind that we have to discover is the problem. So what's the patient or what's the system pain point? So that's why we, for example, started a campaign for colon cancer, Darmkrebs, early detection, and we collaborate with health insurances. Because when we compare Germany with, for example, the Netherlands, we see super low engagement rate when it comes to colon cancer early detection. We struggle around 20, maybe 25% of the eligible insured person doing the colon cancer test, and in the Netherlands they reach about 70%. So what's the problem in Germany? I think it's awareness, and it's a super long and annoying process to do this early prevention and to do the tests. So we partner up with the health insurances for the first outreach and for the marketing campaign from the health insurance to the insured, that the patient gets aware. I mean, this audience here is quite young, but usually everyone in Germany 50 years or older is eligible to do a colon cancer test, but most of them basically don't know, or in case they know, it's quite an annoying way to get to do this test, because you have to schedule an appointment with your doctor, you have to go there, then you're going to do the test, then you have to come back to discuss your results. So what we do is bring this on a digital journey. So the health insurance reaches out to the insured can order the test to their home, do a self-sampling, just bring the test kit back to the post office, and then you will receive your test results digitally. Immediately, once you get your results, you can schedule a call with a telemedicine provider. So you have to leave your house once just to drop in your test, and that's it. So we can reduce the time. So first we make the patient aware, or the insured aware of this offering, and then we reduce the time of this early detection process from 5 or 6 weeks to a week. And I think that's something that's a low-hanging fruit, because the health insurance pays for the test kit, but the patients are not aware. And so we can save time, but we can use current reimbursement schemes, but put it on a digital journey to make it more efficient and faster.
That's a very good point. Again, we're talking about the experience,
Right.
even though it's not like purely digital, but it's the experience which makes it easy, and which makes like certain offers or certain prescriptions like accessible and way easier and also more efficient. And like this is something I take with, like really think about the user and the customer who's paying for it. I think the experience is very important to get it right, to tailor it and make it relevant for the particular target group. And then also when it comes in terms of like business case, who's paying for it, I think also efficiency is also something. Like not always you gain more of money, make like additional revenue, but sometimes the solution might also be that you reduce the effort you're doing now, because then you have more relaxed people in doctor's office, you have like less costs coming later. And yeah, I think there's a lot of the efficiency which comes with digitalization as one of the drivers. So that was like my last words. Do you maybe like a last sentence statement from all of you to close the round? This time I start with Ramona so that you're not always the first.
Okay, talking again. Yeah, so what I mentioned before, I think let's act bold and let's play to win, collaborate with the fragmented industry, and put interoperability on the spot. So I think that's the most important from our perspective, from a tech perspective, to integrate and let the system talk to each other in order to create a seamless patient journey where data exchange enables suitable, sustainable, and personalized healthcare for all.
Taking your point from before, having a young audience, I'd just like to say digital health is a great spot, has tremendous opportunities, as you have heard. There is lots of dark side that you can bring to the light, so I can just encourage everybody to move into that field. There's a lot to do and a lot to earn.
I think I'm also going this direction, that the great part is there's so much to improve. And that's really, really, really cool that we can bring together the knowledge that we have from these other fields, from my side, from the UX part that is just global, and bringing it there and making specialized like add on it to the specific needs that you have with this target group and with this whole system, and make it better and improve it together. I think that's the great part to work in this field, for me at least. And to make these pages that you said, make them pretty.
Let's
So
collaborate on this, yeah?
Okay, I try to summarize this. So be bold. I go on with you. Be bold, see the opportunities, earn with it, make it beautiful, and be persistent, because healthcare innovation is a marathon, not a sprint. And you can't buy this marathon. You can buy equipment, but you have to run yourself and keep running.
Thank you very much. Cool. Then thank you very much for like all of your insights, and you shared with me, discussed with me my questions. Thank you. And also thank you for listening to us, being here. Now you can applause.